part of Ignition's Halloween special, we've come to Whitby, a fishing port on the northeast coast of England, to celebrate one of the greatest and most significant horror characters in both literature and film. Bram Stoker's Dracula was originally published in 1897, but it was here, following a Stoker summer holiday in 1890, that Whitby became a fundamental source of inspiration for the book. The Dublin-born writer would have stayed here on the west coast, and he would have had this amazing view looking over down the harbour, over to the old town and across to see that really imposing silhouette of both Whitby Abbey and St Mary's Church. The tale goes that after munching his way through half the population of Whitby, Dracula then boarded a train and went to London. Today, we're going to retrace those steps, both to find out about the feeding habits of Dracula and to find a bit more about Bram Stoker. Not by train, but by driving the new 7th generation Golf GTI. Let's find out if Volkswagen also has a sinister side. One of the great things about Whitby is that it is surrounded by the stunning North Yorkshire moors. The heather flushes have all but disappeared now, but it still remains a wonderful landscape full of flat tops and big sky. To be honest, it's the perfect venue to show off this GTI. The new wings and vents may make it look all sinister, but even at speed, this is a very well behaved hatchback. The suspension is firm but never crashy, so it allows you to get some real confidence and momentum and flow through these corners. The gear ratios in this 6-speed manual box are very well spaced, and the turbocharged 2-litre petrol engine offers you lag-free performance. I also really like these driver modes that you can select inside the cabin. You've got normal, which gives you very light steering, which I quite like because it doesn't feel as artificial to me. Sport gives you a bit more extra resonance from the engine into the cabin. Eco lets you eke out those final few miles when you're just doing the motorway run. And then you've also got a bespoke setting right at the end, individual, so you can basically tailor all those best attributes to create your own driver setting. I think by the end of today I'm going to have the perfect setup. If only all the roads to London were as good as this. The great things about a long drive in the Golf GTI is that it reveals just how much of an almighty all-rounder this thing is. Attacking the moors was excellent fun, but let's face it, the majority of our time is going to be spent in stop-start traffic just like this. The story goes that Dracula came to London to satiate his thirst for blood and went on an almighty killing spree that covered pretty much the length and breadth of the city. Our first destination today is Hampstead Heath in North London, which is the fictional location of the tomb of Lucy Westenway, one of the most significant characters in the Dracula novel. And to tell us more, we're hooking up with a member of the Dracula Society, Tina Rath. Tina, so Lucy Westenra, very attractive lady from a very wealthy family with a lot of suitors, including Dracula, it seems.
Yes, Lucy has 3 marriage proposals in one day. Dracula sees her at Whitby. He lands at Whitby in the shape of a large black dog. runs up the Abbey steps and takes refuge in the coffin of a suicide, which makes the ground unconsecrated. And while he's flapping about in bat form, he sees Lucy and takes fancy to her, but Lucy's already been bitten. They go back to London, and Lucy is now suffering from anemia and nightmares and sleepwalking. They leave her to sleep. Dracula turns up with a wolf from London Zoo. He comes in and pretty well finishes Lucy off.
Right.
And she later dies.
Okay.
Not before she's been taken over by the vampire spirit.
Does she become sort of vampire in residence for North West London then?
Yes.
Is that...
2 cuttings from newspapers which describe how young children are being decoyed away by a strange and beautiful woman whom they lispingly call the Bluffe Lady. 2 holes in the children's throats, like the holes in the throat of Miss Lucy. How do you think they happened? So they say, oh, well, perhaps it was the same rogue bat that bit Miss Lucy. No, they were made by Miss Lucy.
Right, I'm getting a bit freaked out by this. I think we need to get on the road again. Thanks. Bram Stoker seemed to ground his fictional stories in the reality of his own stories. So where does Hampstead Heath and Green Park come into it?
Well, there were places where you went to enjoy yourself at the weekend, so most of his readers would know about them. He uses all sorts of details like jam racks, the ones who imported wild animals, Chicksands Street in the East End, Piccadilly. He was talking about a London that everyone knew.
A London that he knew?
Indeed, yes.
Feels as if now that Dracula's creations and almost allies are surrounding the city. You've got Lucy up in Hampstead Heath,
yes.
You've got the wolf at London Zoo in the west and
yes.
Renfield over in the east. But Dracula was a count, you know, so he's a very wealthy guy and he only lived just down the road in Piccadilly.
He lives in Piccadilly, yes. He would have been furious, Dracula, to be called a count or a boyar.
Oh,
he was a voivode, a war leader and a prince. However, a count is a very useful title in England because it's a foreign title. He's called a count by Stoker because of that. It's a suspect foreign title.
Right. So how did they end up getting rid of Dracula? How did they get him back to Transylvania where they...
He ran for it. The vampire hunters are trying to get to him before sunset and they drive a cookery knife through his throat. But it is of course possible that as the sun set, Dracula managed to transform himself into a mist, and instead of crumbling to dust under the influence, having his throat slashed, he vanished to come back another time.
Tina, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight, I tell you. The genius to Stoker's narrative is that every generation finds a fresh way to approach Dracula. You know, it's really hard to believe that this book has never been out of print, and in the same vein, the GTI has never been out of production. It too has managed a global audience with mass appeal, and it's fair to say that not every adaptation has actually been better than the original. But the Mark VII, however, the Mark VII is a great GTI.